know the story. Please, if you do, just let's live it again together for a little bit. If you don't know about the Cardiff Five, well, be prepared to be shocked. The story begins on Valentine's Day, 1988, 36 years ago. It begins in Buttown, the docks area of Cardiff, also known as Tiger Bay, more famously. It begins in a little grubby flat above a Buc-ee's on James Street, and a young woman called Annette White is horrendously murdered. The police have one piece of evidence to follow. A witness sees a man outside the flat with blood on his hands, mumbling incoherently in a state of distress, and that's who they start looking for. And their hunt is on. I'll show you. They go on Crime Watch and they issue a photo fit. And that's the photo fit of the man they were hunting for. Remember that face? I'll come back to that face in a bit. 8 months later, unfortunately, they've got absolutely nowhere with it. And the pressure is on them because big corporations have joined forces with the Welsh Government and they have set up the Cardiff Bay Development Corporation. They're going to take the docks, they're going to push the old community out, and they're going to turn it into a lovely gentrified hotel, restaurant, posh flats. I'm sure that Leith knows something about this, and murder is not good for business, so they've got to get this cleared up. Then suddenly, the police completely change the direction of their inquiry. There's no accounting for it. Suddenly, from one single white man, they start looking at the local community, predominantly black community. And they take in 3,000 local black men, drag them through into the police stations, take their DNA, interrogate them. 3,000! And eventually, they narrow it down to 5. These 5 men here. Yeah, they were looking for a white guy. A single white guy, it turns into 5 local black men. These guys didn't even hang around together. They didn't have anything to do with each other. Then what the police had to do was set about working out how they could fit them into the story that they were creating. And they created a fantastic story of revenge and of ritualistic killing, and they set about fitting them into it. And you will be very familiar with how they went about fitting them into it. They falsified evidence. Yeah? They buried evidence. I know you're very familiar with that. They coerced witnesses. Now listen, I've got no idea why the witnesses in Luke's case changed their minds with their statements over time. I'll tell you how they did it in Cardiff and how they still do it. They threaten people that they will have their kids taken away from them unless they say what they want, what the police want. They did it in Michael's case. They did it in the Darvells, they did it in the Merthyr 3 case. And most importantly, what they did is they forced a confession out of this guy here. And I mean, they tortured him. And I don't use that term lightly, tortured. You look at the definition of torture. They tortured him to give a confession. And they've done that in many other cases as well. They did it in Michael's case. They tortured Darren Hall until he confessed. And they, yeah, absolutely. They handcuffed them to hot radiators, yeah. They tried it with Luke, I know that. But Luke was strong. Even at the age of 15, he was strong enough to resist that. This guy here has an IQ of 75, and he's extremely susceptible, and they got the confession out of him. Yeah, that's how they did it. Listen, I'm going to have to cut a very long story short because I'm talking about the story of the longest criminal trial in British history here. 2 years they were on trial. But at the end of the trial, 2 of them were acquitted and 3 of them were convicted of murder and sent to prison for life. At that point, we started our campaign. And it was a powerful campaign. 1990, we started that. By 1992, we got the appeal, and they won the appeal, and they were out. I say they won, they didn't win that appeal because there was no justice in the appeal either. Because they were freed on a technicality. You know this? They were freed because of the way in which they got the confession out of Stephen Miller, but they were not exonerated in any way whatsoever, which enabled the police to continue saying, yeah, well, they got off, but they really did it. Michael knows all about that because they're still saying it about him. Well, look, it's 5 black men, 1 white man they were looking for, 5 black men. The whole community was. This is the other thing, is this was a trauma for the whole Docks community, which they wanted to get rid of anyway. Okay, all right, so this is why we are still fighting 34 years later, because there has been no accountability for any of this. You know, nothing has been done about the police officers. Well, that's not true, actually. I'll tell you what was done about the police officers. They caught the real murderer, by the way, in 2003. Let me show you him. Oh, where's my pictures? There's my pictures, thank you. There he is. Jeffrey Gafford, his name is. Wait a minute, let's have a look. Sorry, where's the other one? What's here? Different hairstyle, but not. Okay, yeah, that's right. So that was the guy they were looking for. And then, in 2011, they actually put 15 of these bent coppers on trial. Brilliant, the last justice is going to be done, is it hell? Because a couple of weeks in, the trial collapses. And the judge acquits these coppers. And why did it collapse? Because some documents went missing. And then turned up again after they were acquitted in an evidence box in the office of the chief prosecuting officer. So no justice whatsoever. It's why we're still fighting today. Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to just tell you about how we're fighting. We've joined forces with Mike O'Brien because we realised that what's important here is not this case over here or that case over there. It's the connections between them all. It's the patterns of systematic corruption. So we formed a strong unity with Mike to fight for 16 cases in Wales. We're fighting for all of them. Not because we want revenge on the police, although some of that would be nice. We're doing this because we want to stop it happening again and to protect future generations from this kind of harm. We formed an organisation called the People's Forum to do that. I'll give out some leaflets when I've finished. Can I just say, in Wales, we have taken on board Michael Mansfield's advice. We've taken it to heart. Just in case you don't know Mike Mansfield, he's one of the most important barristers in overturning wrongful convictions, going back to the Guildford 4, Birmingham 6, back in the early 80s. Mike Mansfield says this is his advice. You cannot rely on the people in power. You've got to go through all of the appeal system, you've got to go to the CCRC, you've got to do it, but you can't rely on it, we know this. He says you've got to rely on the power in the people.
Yes!
The power in the people, these are the people. You've got to build this power, because this is the only thing that this corrupt system is afraid of. As soon as you get the anger of masses of people released, then they start moving. And then they start very begrudgingly having to do things. So you've got to build that power. Sorry. Make them uncomfortable, but I'll make them scared for their bloody lives. And I think they are scared, actually, at the moment. I think they are.
Anyone like a nice Pontiac?
Because I think that people's trust in this establishment, the trust in the policing system in particular, is crumbling and cracking like the rack concrete they've surrounded us with. It's crumbling. And we've got to get in there and make use of that by building this power. This is why Sunak has started talking about mob rule overthrowing democracy. Well, what democracy and what mobs, to be honest? Are we a mob? Are you a mob? Well, they're gonna, believe me, they're gonna go for us. Yeah, absolutely.
They already are. We're the far right.
They're bringing in all these new rules about protests. They want to constantly change the definition of extremism. You know what some people in the Tory party want to turn extremism into? Anyone who seeks to undermine the establishment or the values of this country, the institutions. Well, in that case, I'm a bloody extremist because I certainly want to undermine the institutions of criminal justice, and I'm totally opposed to the values of our political elite. We will all be extremists soon, believe me. There's no police officers here, is there?
Nope.
So I wanted to say to any officers who are here, they're going to have a very difficult choice soon, because they're going to have to choose whether they stand on the side of the people they're supposed to serve, or whether they stand with the corrupt institutions that will try and turn them against us. Anyway, okay, listen. Free Luke. Free Corinne from the torment that she's in. And let Jodie rest in peace.
Yes! Come on now!
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Mike. Very brilliant that these guys have come up in support of Luke's case as well. When you see the battles they've had as well. We're going to wrap up today with some more recordings. This time from the experts. Just to wrap up today, we have a very special message at the end of that recording. That's kind of all I'm going to say about that. If anybody wants boots, we have boots here today, and obviously for the sunflowers, they're down here. Can you see them with the sunflowers? If anybody wants the sunflowers to leave here to commemorate both Jodie and Luke. Thank you all once again for coming out today. You're absolutely amazing. You never let us down. You always do us proud. And I will just echo what the others have said. Justice for Jodie. Justice for Corey. Justice for Luke. Justice for all of us. Thank you.
Yes!
People in the citizen accept that they can't redeem them, the whole year of things like that. There's one boy, young guy, Luke Mitchell, and take him a year the year first. Boy's innocent, you'll hear about a lot about him.